Delightful to see you, Zoom community, sanctuary community. Welcome to Parkway United Church of Christ, where through God's Spirit we seek to listen deeply, build community, and act for justice. Whether this is your first time you've been able to join us for worship or your umpteenth time, you are welcome here. Whether you're on Facebook Live or Zoom or in the sanctuary, you are welcome here. No matter your sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, racial, ethnic identity, you are welcome here. No matter your relationship with the Christian tradition, whether you have been a part of it consistently or really have a lot of questions or even consider yourself outside the tradition, you are welcome here. No matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. This land that is referred to as Winston-Salem, North Carolina, is the rightful home of the Cherokee, Tutelo, Soxapahawny, Socorro nations. Land stolen from these nations. So we commit to recognizing and repairing the harm that colonization has caused these people as well as the land itself. And we are cognizant of the fact of the number of siblings brought to this continent for enslavement and seek repair, reparation, and renewal of relationship. Paying our respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. May we learn to walk a path of healing. Our prelude is offered by Anna, who has been with us about a year, and so we celebrate her ministry with us. Our cleaning contractor, Tobe, yesterday afternoon, took a pause from cleaning our building, sweat pouring down his face. He said to me, when you're not feeling well, you recognize all the things in our bodies we absolutely take for granted every day. So we pause and see if we can discern our beating heart. See if you can catch your pulse and pay attention to its rhythm as we seek to harmonize our bodies for worship. This amazing series of muscles in our bodies carrying oxygen and blood cells and nutrients all over our bodies, each and every moment of our living. We offer gratitude, O merciful one, for all of the intricacies of our bodies, that we might worship and serve and give praise. Amen. Father, we give you thanks for the holy vine of your servant David, which you made known to us through Jesus, your servant. Glory to you forever and ever. Mother of us all, we give thanks for the life and knowledge you sent us through your Son, your child, Jesus of Nazareth. As grain was scattered across the hills, then gathered and made one in bread, so may your church, scattered to the ends of the earth, be gathered and made one in your commonwealth. We rise as we are able in body and or spirit for our opening hymn. There's a wideness in God's mercy. Have a seat. Grateful to you for the ways that your lives show thanksgiving in the world. We come to our time of celebrations and prayer concerns. And as I do that, I'm hoping that we have a little book that's being passed around, and we encourage you just to sign in. That gives us a sense of community. Pass it. If you don't know somebody around you, note their name and introduce yourself. We remember in this community Pauline J., who continues with a rare condition she's hoping to improve with, but it needs our care and support. Tim G. had surgery on Friday to remove a tumor from his brain and is recovering. So we hold Tim and Sterling in our prayer. Ken R. continues to recover from surgery. We pray for Jim W., who is still struggling with health issues, with Bill as he prepares for treatment, and Deborah as she's still trying to figure out what her treatment might be, with Mary M., who's had a lot of pain in her knee, with Stephanie M., as she continues to seek support, for everybody who is facing medical scans or procedures or waiting to hear medical results, with Rebecca as she continues to try to get solutions for her health issues, for everybody who's facing anxiety or depression or any mental health challenges. We're praying with China as she has found a job and is looking for housing in Hickory, with Tyson as he prepares for his new work in Cleveland, Ohio, with Pat S., who texted me this morning saying, please share gratitude for prayers and cards and continued prayers for wisdom and strength as she begins her treatment. With the Freedom Schools all across not only this county, but across the nation, and particularly the Conoke Community Freedom School, which begins their 6 weeks here in our facility tomorrow. All of the students and staff. For the Southern Conference, as they met this past weekend, and particularly our delegates, Peggy and Andrea, and Tim and Karen and Alina and Andrea and I, who offered a workshop on Friday afternoon about the work of climate justice and care of creation in this congregation. For all of those who were able to represent us and attend the Pride Parade and Festival yesterday, grateful for the safety of everyone. I'm going to invite those on Zoom to share in the chat what you have on your hearts today, as well as all of those in our sanctuary who, by a phrase or a word, wish to lift up thanksgiving or concerns. Beth J., ongoing prayers for Carolyn and Paul, indeed. Yes, Peggy as well, continuing prayers for Carolyn. Prayers for an upcoming mammogram this week. Beth J., continue to share in the chat. I'm going to pass my hand across our sanctuary community to invite you to share what's on your heart. Yes, Jim.
God always finds a way. I wanted to share yesterday at the Pride Parade a sign that said, Jesus said, love one another as I've loved you. And I didn't get the sign made, but I made it in the newspaper. And unfortunately, the guy thought I went to the United Church of the United Methodist Church. But God always finds a way to share his message. I got to share that. Thank you.
Yes, China.
Our king and I are celebrating 1 full year in his wedded bliss on Friday. Yes.
Anniversary celebrations for Hakeem in China. Yes, Claire Nell, and then Lisa.
I don't usually do much of anything for my birthday, but I will turn 70 on Wednesday, and that begins my summer of 70 celebration, which includes family members coming for a party next Saturday, and then a trip to Norway and Switzerland, and then finally at the end of summer, a homecoming at my last church before retirement. I thank God for the blessings and pray for safety for those traveling and for joy as we celebrate together.
For Claire Nell's 70th birthday. Lisa? For Charles, Lisa's neighbor in hospice. Tim?
I ask for prayers for a just outcome in our court case in the mountains this week. It's been postponed 3 times, and we pray that justice will occur.
For a just outcome for the Binkley family as they attend a court in Burnsville this week. Craig? Gratitude for the rain. Terry?
I wanted to underscore what Pastor Shaw said about being safe yesterday, and I hope that this country will get to a place where we can have large gatherings like that and not even be concerned for our safety.
Prayer that we can express our First Amendment right of free speech and feel safe. Who else? Anybody else on Zoom? I'm going to invite us. Some get said, much is held. And so this is a space for whatever you're holding to mark in the presence of the sacred as we pause for a moment of stillness and then prepare to pray the prayer Jesus taught in whatever language and whatever tradition is your choosing. Our Father, Mother, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sin as we forgive those who sin against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. It's good to share a sign of peace with one another, and so we'll do so whether you're on Zoom or in the sanctuary at this time.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Peace, everyone.
Peace.
Good to be with you. Hold you in Zoom land.
Yes.
Peace and good morning.
Good morning, Michelle.
Peace and good morning.
Day. It's a beautiful sunshiny day. So far.
I'm going to be going back to sleep later this afternoon. They were all yesterday. They were reworking very well the roof insulation of my apartment complex, but it was so loud. I'm seriously sleep deprived right now. Whew. Oh well.
Glad you could be here.
Definitely. At least physically, even if not mentally. Well, Zoom physically,
Yeah.
you know what I mean.
I've been missing you, Aunt Mackie.
And if and if you're trying to say something, you're muted, Ann Mackey. You're muted. Oops. Never mind.
I'm still dealing with daily pain, and it's the first time in yesterday.
Oh.
Couple times.
Uh-oh. I better mute myself.
I'm able to get up in time this morning to at least get to church. I'm not Sunday school yet, but I'm aiming for that. I don't sleep well, so I sleep late.
I better mute myself.
I can't seem to type in anything to the chat. It never works for me. So
Maybe a couple of you have encountered a psalm in your life before called the 23rd Psalm. We are going to read from the Message, the translation of Eugene Peterson today, to perhaps offer some freshness to it. God, my shepherd, I don't need a thing. You've bedded me down in lush meadows. You find me quiet pools to drink from. True to your word, you let me catch my breath and send me in the right direction. Even when the way goes through Death Valley, I'm not afraid. When you walk at my side, your trusty shepherd's crook makes me feel secure. You serve me a 6-course dinner right in front of my enemies. You revive my drooping head. My cup brims with blessing. Your beauty and love chase after me every day of my life. I'm back home in the house of God for the rest of my life. Our music of preparation.
Good morning. I usually try to get the lyrics to these things that I write into the bulletin, and apparently I fat-fingered something or fumble-footed something or whatever, so it didn't happen. I do that so you can follow along, because I know that some of you kind of pick up on the tune and pick up on the cadence and start to sing along. I'm afraid you're not going to be able to do that today. I will try harder next time. The song is based on the 23rd Psalm, and it's called So Much. I have so much, my shepherd. How can I count the ways that you do those things you do for me? For I even say what I need. I'm renewed in lovely meadows and by waters still and clear. When I go through times of trouble, I know I needn't fear anything. you near in my heart. I have so much I have left. How can I count the ways you do those things you do for me? For I even say what I mean.
I just want to say about yesterday. I counted 10 different faith communities represented. What a delightful thing to be in witness with siblings of various faith traditions. It wasn't always that way. This congregation has had a presence in that event for nearly 40 years. And so what a delight it is to be joined by others in these times. You know, much of our traditions, understanding of liturgy, and even church architecture has shifted the emphasis of the symbolic sacred presence from an altar to what? The table. And it's not that sacrifice is not still represented in that piece of furniture and all the symbolism that goes with it. In fact, the table represents a powerful series of sacrifices. And I'm not just talking about Jesus on the cross as forgiveness of sin. I'm talking about all of the sacrifices required for us to have sustenance every day. I'm talking about all of the sacrifices of labor and ingenuity and imagination of all of those who provide us with the opportunities to eat. I'm talking about the labor sacrifice to prepare meals. I'm talking about the sacrifice of our egos so that we might shift our imagination of who gets to sit at table with us. I'm talking about the sacrifice of our awareness, our presence, our attention and time at table to provide a space for somebody to share a little bit more of their story, a little bit about their day, how to make meaning in life while they eat. The table becomes home not because where it's located, but because of the relationships that are deepened there and the theological imagination that is cultivated there. The table is so often the place where new stories begin. Last week we engaged in the idea that we so boldly claim to host sacred presence at our tables. Today, I'd like us to engage in a little bit of thinking about the idea that sacred presence hosts us at the table. As the psalmist in verse 5 of 23 has an awareness, you prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You think of some other stories, can you? Haman, Esther, King Ahasuerus gather at the table at the height of the possibilities of violence and political tension. And over a glass of wine, there is a new possibility that a marginalized people will survive. Lot hosted strangers at at the table, and he got so bonded to them at the table that he felt the requirement to actually offer them protection in that tragic story in the book of Genesis. Abraham and Melchizedek forged a peace agreement because they brought out to the field a loaf of bread and a cup of wine. David, ready to annihilate petty Nabal, is coaxed into peace by Nabal's wife, Abigail, who brings out this big basket of delicious treats and says, David, won't you just eat some of this until you come to your senses? Amen, yes. Jesus sat at table with one who he already knew would betray him, dipping bread in the same bowl and offering still humanity to Judas. You know, the table is often a place where new stories begin. Stories sometimes of hope and sometimes of love and sometimes of reconciliation. It could be that the table is the place where our vulnerability and our politics intersect. Because we're not entirely in charge, are we? At every table, holy love is preparing a table before us, some kind of sustenance, some kind of expanded imagination that we are invited to receive no matter how dangerous and uncertain our circumstances. Well, there are a lot of ways that we might imagine the scene in verse 5, isn't there? Maybe some of us have always imagined it as this kind of sumptuous gloating of eating alone before all of our enemies arrayed around us. Or maybe we've imagined so much trustworthiness and sense of comfort and security that we can dine with calm even though the enemy might be around the next bend or over the next hillock. Or maybe, just maybe, we could imagine this table set before us in the Hebrew face-to-face with adversaries as a source, a possibility, an invitation to nonviolence and reconciliation. And I'd like to play with that scene, that third imagination, for a few minutes. I'd like to play with the table as the place where new stories and new relationships are formed. First, holy love prepares a table of sustenance before us for not only bodily, but also emotional healing. We, if we're honest, have so many forces arrayed around the tables today that vex and lead astray. And that's actually the definition of this Hebrew word, enemy, the one who vexes, the one who might lead us astray. We as Americans have a pretty troubled relationship with food, don't we? 30 million folks at any given time in their lives are suffering with an eating disorder in this country. So the table is often a place where we struggle with violent moralism around eating, where we think we can take control when so much of our lives are out of control. So holy love comes to spread out the resources that we might have life, while the imagery of the marketplace has its message, and the shaming of our social circles has its message, and the self-loathing cultivated in social media has that message, and the ready access to really bad food has made the table a place of struggle and sometimes even death. We know so many of the folks who are struggling are BIPOC folks who struggle economically, folks who have not been seen, not been heard, not been acknowledged, young people given these destructive messages of what is beauty, what is success. These are the vexers, the cramping powers surrounding all of our tables. And the God of mercy comes to us and asks us as table mates to convey love and support and tenderness that calls out the violence to bodies and psyches. And the Good Shepherd says, enough. You are mine. I place a hedge around you that you might see what's before you as gifts of sustenance and strength and enjoyment and relationship with your body. Invitations to love your body rather than to destroy it. You are mine before you are a consumer. I create a table of love in the presence of the body shamers and hucksters of diet policing. The second, I will say, is the table you prepare before us, God, is a locus of our decisions about all of our relationships. When we come to the table, we bring the world into our lives. And arrayed around our tables are those who exploit. And not just us, but those we would want to be in relationship with. The seasonal farm workers who often have no right to organize, often have no protections against the chemicals they are required to use, against the sun, against sexual harassment, against wage theft, against deportation. The family farmers who are required to compete with giant operations and still live by the rules of the corporations who set the rules. The Black and Indigenous farmers who have suffered a legacy of inequity in even government programs, generation after generation, families forced off the land into town for low-wage service industry work. The restaurant workers who often have no right to take a day off, even when they're sick or when they are injured. And the ecosystem, of course, suffering loss of soil, deforestation, petrochemical dousing, to crank out a monoculture of subsidized crops. Crops we support with our taxes, that we eat, that make our bodies sick and make our planet warmer. Holy love prepares the table not to shame us about our decisions at supper time, but to invite us into a deeper relationship with those we want to share mutual joy and healing. The table is a place for new stories, new relationship, new imagination. It's the place where resilience begins. It's not going to solve all of the problems of division or violence or injustice, but it is a generous space which God opens up so that we might start anew. It so often happens in the tiny networks of local communities, gathering people from all walks of life so that we understand that we have life together. And so our church right now has made an investment in featuring acts of food resilience. Food not only which feeds us, but also feeds our imagination that something else is possible. Something that highlights gratitude, Eucharist, and relationship, rather than focusing on the vexers and the naysayers arrayed around our tables. And that's why Olena is working with us these weeks this summer. And I encourage you to come on board and be with us in these efforts. Because I'm convinced that this isn't going to stop when her internship with us is done at the end of July. But this sparks new relationships with others in our community and creates a new imagination for this congregation as we move forward. It's a way for us to know that the table is a place to encounter God's love. A place where we cultivate our ability to listen deeply, to build community, to act for justice.
Morning. This is one of those old camp meeting style gospel songs, I think started out in the African American churches and has spread around in many different ways. And I have not sent in the words to post because it's just a new first line every verse, and I kind of like doing it the old-fashioned way, called I'm Gonna Sit at the Welcome Table. I think many of them will sing some of the older verses and a few of the new ones as well.
Thank you. You know, this invitation to pull up a chair and be part of community is one that is not just receiving, but also giving. We need resources to do what we do as a community of faith, as a spiritual community, but we are never inviting you into a transactional encounter. We are inviting you into an experience of finding a different relationship to your financial resources. That opens up a space for a different kind of imagination. An invitation that says, I am going to invest in the kind of community that I want to be a part of, doing the kinds of things that I want to experience in the world. And by so doing, maybe I loosen up my tension and my anxiety about my checkbook or my bank account and have a way to put my heart of gratitude into what it is that I want to be experiencing in my life. That's the invitation of offering, not just to pay the bills. And so you can do that. There's a plate in back. There's a button on our website. There's an address of this building. You could send a check. And we thank you. Thank you for all of the ways that you give. A couple of announcements. You know, speaking of resources, we are examining all of the ways that we can preserve our resources. And one of those is, you know, it's good to have this printed bulletin, but it requires staff time and resources. And so we're hoping that we begin to reduce the paper bulletin. We're now putting everything on the screen that you need to participate in. And we're sending out ahead of time a digital bulletin that we invite you to bring on your phone or your tablet or whatnot, that we can conserve paper and staff time. We just invite your consideration of that. We aren't going to have communion or candle lighting today because we're going to have a conversation right after church, brief conversation about our experience today. Next Sunday, we'll have a full communion service where we will, I know many of you have been asking to gather around the outside of the sanctuary to experience communion. We'll do that next Sunday. And there's an invitation to you to join at 9:30 each Sunday, either virtually or in the fellowship hall for our table community discussion each Sunday this summer. Saturday, September 9th, is our next day retreat. And we've got a group of people emerging to think about what that theme is going to be and how to live that theme out with various activities for a day retreat. So if that's something that calls to you, let us know if you'd like to be part of that planning team for a day retreat in September. You know, if you've not had a chance to wander through the food forest around the Zuni Bowl in the corner of our land lately, I invite you to do so. There's a gorgeous array of different colored bee balm right now that you might want to take a look at. And you will also notice that I can use some help with maintenance of that area when you're there with some weeding. So I'd be glad to talk to you about that, a shady, cool day when you can relax for an hour. You know, the United Church of Christ has offered us a grant this summer, as well as other, I think 5 other UCC-related institutions across the church to have a Climate Hope Fellow. And we have been very fortunate to have Olena W, second-year student at Wake Forest School of Divinity, join us, doing an excellent job building connections with others in her community. And she is here to share a little bit about that work today.
Hi, Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I feel a little short. That's weird. I'm so glad to be with you guys today. As Craig said, I've had the great opportunity to come in and work with y'all through this Climate Hope grant from the UCC. And there are about half a dozen of us across the nation, from here in North Carolina to Texas to all the way in Hawaii, who are doing similar work, some exactly the same, some very different depending on our location, that all centers around engaging our communities around topics of environmentalism and making our voices heard in new and exciting ways, or some of the same ways, you know. I think you all probably feel the same way I do, that even now, a few years past the brunt of COVID, right, we're still learning new ways and emerging from that. And so trying to reconnect with our community, make new community connections. So that's a little bit of what I'm doing. So specifically, I'm working on 2 local projects. We're going to have a climate cafe on July 13th, tentatively, and I think most of you probably received an email, so be looking out in your newsletter as well for some more information on these events. And then on the 22nd, we're going to be doing a kind of tour of resilience, where we get the chance to connect throughout our community with lots of different gardens, farms, producers, distributors, and people doing the work of food justice. So be on the lookout for more information about those things. And then along with all of the fellows across the nation, we're all engaging in the UCC Climate Hope cards campaign. Some of you might have seen these postcards in and around. I think some of you received some on your way in. If not, we have some for you on the way out. So you might be wondering, what is this? What are these cards? I'd love to tell you. The EPA is in the process of updating a number of protections that could significantly impact our environment and public health. Many are related to power plant pollution. There's a rule having to do with coal ash pollution. There's a rule having to do with toxic water pollution from power plants. And a key thing with many of these protections is that if they're accepted, they won't be enforced until at least 2035, and some even later. And so as we continue to engage in this campaign, one key thing we're hoping is that we can urge them to move that deadline forward to at least 2030, so that we can keep on track with our nation's climate goals. So the UCC, the broader UCC, is engaging in this campaign to make our voices heard as a collective unit, as well as offering an opportunity for individuals to make their voices heard on important issues. So these protections, as I'm sure you guys know, are an important work of justice, right? It's not just clearing up some pollution here and there. It's a work of justice, because many of these protections, or lack thereof, will be felt most by marginalized rural communities, and especially the children who grow up in these communities from birth, who have to deal with all of these air and water quality as their bodies and brains are developing. So these postcards you'll see have a place for your name, your email, phone, and a message. And we'll be sending these to the EPA and the White House in September, so you have some time, but don't wait too long. And so we're hoping to show a physical representation, right, of as many postcards as we can gather. And additionally, on the card, you'll find a small box that says, "Keep me updated," that you can check. And if you do so, you'll be sent an email each time a new protection is open for public comment, so that you can go on and register your own individual comment. So that allows our collective voice to be heard and your individual voice to be heard on each thing as well. So we encourage you to take one for yourself and a couple for your neighbors, your friends, your family members, and you can just bring them back to the church whenever you have them filled out. And if you need more, pick up some more. And then we'll send them off from the church in September. Yes, so thank you so much. Oh, Anna, yeah.
I have a question. So, can I write a lot of them myself? Would that make an impact, or and not check the informed on every one of them?
I think we're hoping to have as many different, because it has a place for your name and your email. So writing, different people for each card. Yes, yes.
Where do you bring them
You can drop them off at the church, you can bring them on a different Sunday, give them to the office, or I don't know if you have a specific place you'd like them dropped. We can, yes.
And what exactly are we supposed to write on a postcard?
Yeah, so it has a general message that has been put from the whole UCC. I'll read it to you really quick. It says, "It is the moral responsibility of our nation to protect our ecosystems, advance environmental justice and public health, and address the climate crisis. Existing scientific and technical information indicates current pollution standards are inadequate to protect public health. And that's why we're thrilled that the EPA will be updating standards to protect our health and our climate, to care for our neighbors and prioritize the needs of those who are most vulnerable among us. We call on the EPA to set the strongest science-based pollution standards possible as soon as possible." So it has that general message on there, and then it has a place if you'd like to write any personal message, but you don't have to.
I just thought, since you said you wanted it enacted by 2030 instead of 2030.
Yeah, so you could write that in your message, yes. And then in any public comment that you go on and register, you could also put that in there. Yeah. Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Lena. What she didn't say is, we've been given a goal to turn in 550 of these. So we need your help. It's an ambitious project, so we hope you can be assertive in getting those in your circle of influence to complete these, if they feel so comfortable. Our closing song is, "Lord, Make Me More Holy." Rise as you are able.
It is on page 75, not 73 if you're using the hymnal. And the words are a little different at the end, so from what's in the hymnal. So pay attention to the bulletin words.
We hope you'll be able to stick around for a few minutes, gathering in the front pews for a conversation, and perhaps engage in it if you've got more questions about the Climate Hope postcard project and the other projects we're engaged in this summer. Turn to your neighbor. Say, neighbor. Love is preparing a table for you. Go and adjust peace. Amen. Amen.